If you change your voice, does that make it fake? We're gonna talk about that on this video because I get that comment a lot on this channel from haters, but also from people who are concerned that if they change their voice, if they modify it, whether it's their accent or whether it's making it sound more masculine or more feminine, a lot of people are really concerned and preoccupied with this idea of not being fake or it not being something natural. So first off, does changing your voice make it fake? Well, no, that doesn't even make sense. We don't judge someone based on where they came from in the past or where they're headed in the future. We take in an individual at the present. And if we ask the question of where did your initial voice even come from, we'll see the answer is clearly your environment and your behavior. The voice is a behavioral ability. It's not something that we just naturally do. So this entire idea of, oh my gosh, you've changed your natural voice, blah, 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 that we hear from like TERFs or gender critical people, it's nonsense because there isn't something innate about us that makes us talk or sound the way that we do. While it's true that male and female average vocal physiology differs in some ways, the difference in the sounds that we end up with are much, much, much more than just our physiology acting out its natural path. And we can see that over and over and over again. For example, if you are Scottish and you are born in Scotland, is there something about your DNA that makes you sound Scottish? No, it's that you've collected the auditory targets from that environment, and over time you've made those sounds, and those become just the behavior that comes out right away. Think of it this way. Voice is a behavior. It's no different than any other behavior that we do, except it's an important communication tool for us. This idea of voice essentialism is even accentuated by professional voice coaches and voice teachers, especially from the operatic and classical singing traditions. They fuck everyone into a voice type, tenor, baritone, soprano, bass, and people perceive that as some inalienable, fundamental, intrinsic component of their voice. The great irony, of course, being that they will spend 8 years working on their masterate degree or 12 years working on their doctoral degree to learn how to do and teach these things. So clearly it's not the natural path of the singing voice because people have to learn how to do it. This takes us back to this point where we can see what looks like this automatic ability coming out of someone, and it's very tempting to describe that as some natural innateness about the voice, when in reality, we are already learning and preparing ourselves to vocalize before we even exit the womb. Newborn babies can discriminate the difference between their native language, a different language, and non-language sounds. And that is because the process of voice learning involves acquiring sounds by listening to them or experiencing these different sensory qualities, and then those form targets that drive our action, which is why if you're born in Scotland, you'll tend to sound Scottish because all the sounds that you're picking up and hearing throughout your life are those sounds. And so naturally you reach and you make sounds in that way. Now, that doesn't mean that at some point later in your life, you can't acquire new targets and then start practicing those targets and then eventually have an automatic effect that doesn't have that Scottish quality to it anymore. Does that make it fake? Well, no, because it's not something that you're forcing or doing or faking. You are just identifying the quality that you ultimately want, and then you are practicing that so that it becomes automatic, so that it's not something you have to do manually. Even if you are manually and intentionally remembering to change your voice, that doesn't make it fake, because we intentionally change our voice in all sorts of circumstances, but just to a smaller degree. If you're angry, your voice changes. If you're feeling loved or you're feeling really joyful, your voice changes. If you're talking to a child, your voice changes. The words you use change. If you're talking to someone who's an elder of yours, your voice is going to change. Does that mean all of those are fake? No, of course not, because voice is a behavior. Our environment causes our behavior to change in different ways. If you are in a burning building, unfortunately, you're going to act a lot differently than if you're just laying in your bed comfortably. That is because the environment changes behavior. And so if you're an individual who goes, I don't really like my accent, or I want to sound more feminine or more masculine, you're recognizing that your environment is causing an effect for you that you want to change. How can you change that environment? Well, since that environment's being created by the sound that you're hearing in your voice, you learn how to change your voice. So you are changing your behavior against the environment, using your voice to change the environment. It is a feedback loop on itself. And so this idea of it being fake seems pretty strange. Now, obviously, the less you have to think about your voice, the more internally it will feel authentic and quote unquote natural. A lot of people on the channel ask, how do you get your voice to be automatic? Do I have to think about using my voice when I use it? I don't have to think about using my voice anymore, and you don't have to if you're able to approach this process in the right way. Deep normalization does take time, just like forming any habit does. Just like forming your original voice took time for that habit to ultimately build up inertia to keep going. However, you can make your voice automatic and quote unquote natural if you are able to consistently reproduce the effect you want, and when you recognize that you have broken away from the behavior that you've learned how to do that you want, bringing that quality back into play. So it's about perpetually resetting, and in that window of time, it can feel a little forced. It can feel a little frustrating because you're thinking about it. But that's the same effect we experience with any habit that we try to break or any habit that we try to build. We have to intentionally build a habit or intentionally break a habit. And the only difference is, because of the way we treat voice in our society as this sort of innate, essential component of our identity, then of course, trying to intentionally break that habit feels a lot different than trying to intentionally not chew your nails if you're a nail chewer. But in reality, they're the same thing. Even more insidious, if you really peel back the veneer around this whole natural claim, you will tend to see that it ultimately comes back to some religious fundamentalism. This idea that you're a male, you're female, you have this voice, you've got that, and it's bad or negative or forbidden to change that plan. And it's very interesting because I get a lot of comments from TERFs or transphobic individuals on the channel, and it is amazing to me how there is a common thread behind all of them. This essentialist thread about what you ought do or what you ought not do, and who you are, and how intrinsic the effect that people see externally is to you internally. It comes back to this very orthodox or fundamentalist strain of thought. Now, that doesn't mean that every person who expresses that thing is fundamentally religious or something, but it shows culturally how that fundamentalist idea of divine nature and inertia of nature itself creeps up in this process. One of the best examples that we can look at to understand how ridiculous this voice essentialist claim is to look at body posture. There are a lot of individuals who reach adulthood with really unhealthy, uncomfortable postures, but those are natural in that they form on their own, and as they then progress through their life, it's not even something they're aware of. They automatically do that posture. And think about how much pain that causes for some people. And some postures that people naturally have not only cause pain, but can also just make a person look less attractive or can hurt their abilities to get a job. Imagine if you come into a work interview and you have this really uncomfortable posture or this really unprofessional posture that can really impact your life opportunities. Should we just say, oh, well, that person's natural posture is that, so sorry about your luck? No, we don't do that. We help those people because we understand that posture is a learned behavior, and we can learn to change our posture, to change our appearance, to change our health, to change what we signal to the world, and that's awesome. The ability to know and learn how to actually change your speaking voice is a pretty rare ability and is a new field of thought relative to other things that humans have studied and tended to do. So there is this tendency to perceive it as unnatural or impossible. I mean, the vast majority of people don't even know you can change your voice at all. That leads to this idea of thinking that changing your voice makes it less natural. If you get a haircut and you try a different style, is that a fake haircut? No, that doesn't even make sense. And so it's really important for us to recognize that fundamental essentialism and remove it from the process. In fact, I think it's very detrimental to most individuals who are seeking to change their voice to even really concern themselves with the identity component of it. Or, for example, as we've heard a lot in the past, your authentic voice. I see a lot of voice coaches and voice trainers and speech language pathologists who really use and lean on this frame of your authentic voice. And I find this to be a tremendous trap, because how are you going to develop your authentic voice if you don't even know how to change your voice and you don't even have control or manipulation of that ability. That's like trying to learn how to draw your authentic painting without even having ability to paint or ability to manipulate the medium. I find it much easier for people to focus on the medium, focus on the sound, focus on the voice control. Once we have that ability to change and modify more freely, then we can channel that in what we want. Because ultimately, if you have freedom and control with your voice, you're not going to have to think about what you want it to authentically sound like, because you're going to use that capacity and capability to just express the way that you want. And that is natural expression, authentic expression. And even more importantly, if you put that authentic identity as such a core part of this process, every time you go to practice your voice and you struggle or you fail, it's going to feel like your authentic identity is failing, not real, not natural, whatever. And so you see, if we put our internal validity and identity in the same vehicle as what we're just trying to learn a vocal ability and vocal skill, that can be crushing and really detrimental to our motivation and our own self-belief in the process, because we're developing capacity so that we can lean into that capacity and express what we want, how we want it. And then once we have that capacity, it becoming automatic is so much easier. And here is the silliest part about all of this. Whether you're a TERF, whether you are a concerned trans individual, or whether you are someone trying to change your accent because you just don't like the way it sounds, let me just say from my personal experience, my voice has never been more natural to me. That is why I changed it, because the voice I had initially did not reflect or align with what I wanted. And nobody in this world knows what I want more than me. So for someone to come and try and tell me, that's not your natural voice, that's a no, it's not. What I spoken before was not a natural voice for me. That was a fake voice. I intentionally lowered my voice to try to fit into society. And you're going to try to say that that is my natural voice? Absolutely ridiculous. This is the most authentic and most genuine, most comfortable expression that I've ever had in my life. And every day I settle more into who I am as an individual. And no one else has the right to take that away or try and express what I'm doing as something that isn't natural for me or isn't me. Is my voice fake? Nope, it's never been realer. And I'm so happy about that. And I'm thankful to be able to teach other people how to liberate and free their behavior so they can really come into their own individual self. So that's all for this video. Thank you all so much for watching. If you have any questions or comments, post down below. Don't forget to like and subscribe. If you want to support the work we are doing on this platform, check us out on Patreon. We just released a massive workshop which can get you up to speed on a lot of the voice learning basics so that you can take better advantage of the material on this channel. We'll eventually be launching a long multi-part series from the very beginning to the very end of everything you need to know. So that will be in development. Otherwise, thank you all so much and have a great rest of your day. Bye.